However, we're going to move on. And our last thing that we're going to be talking about on the podcast, we talked about them last week. You can check it out on our YouTube page, or if you want to listen to the full podcast with all 3 topics on our SoundCloud. We talked about Notre Dame and Michigan State probably regaining or restarting their rivalry. Today we're going to look at just Notre Dame. And Brandon, I'm going to ask you plain and simple, very just right off the cuff, right at you. When will it be time, and is it time now for Notre Dame to join a Power 5?
It was time yesterday. It was time yesterday. No, Notre Dame needs to do it. They just need to make the move. They know they want to. They just need to do it. And I think it should be at the end of this season. Now, obviously, they're not going to do it now, but I think that it needs to be done at the end of this season. That's what I think.
Well, and here's why I think that I'm with you. The move needs to happen, and this is why I'm saying they need to officially join a Power 5, because right now they're kind of wishy-washy in the sense of, oh, we kind of play the ACC, but we're not a part of the ACC. We're still an independent. And the way I see it is this year could be a big year for Notre Dame, because let's say they do go undefeated. They're going to cause a lot of headaches for the College Football Playoff Committee because, well, okay, not this year. Maybe next year, because next year the Big 12 is getting their conference championship back. So we're going to have 5 conference champions. Let's say you have all these 5 conference champions. Not only do you have to pick which 4 of them deserve to get in the playoffs, but on top of it, you need to say, oh, well, this Notre Dame team went undefeated. We got to throw them into it now, too. Because the one thing, if we saw from last year, what is the one thing the committee proved they are going to take higher than anything else? Conference championships.
That was last year's theme. They'll come up
you
with
think it's going to be a different one this year?
They'll come up with a new theme for this year, and it will. It almost has every year. I mean, we don't need to even be the guys to tell you that. Mm-hmm. You've heard that on all the big networks. You've heard it. And then you go back, you look, and you go, oh, my gosh. It's true. It's true. It's always something each year. It's always something different. Next year, conference championship won't matter. It will be something completely different. When they have you looking left, all of a sudden they are going to sneak out to your right through the back door, and you'll be going, I thought they were... Forget it.
Statue of Liberty play.
But that's what you're going to do. You're going to say, oh, forget it, because they're going to screw with you each year. They've shown it historically.
Well, and I mean, even if we looked last year, let's say Notre Dame had a better season last year and they weren't 10-3. Let's say they were 12-1. Let's put that into consideration. They only had 1 loss. You look at Alabama, 14-1, so they only had 1 loss as well. You look at Oklahoma, 11-2, 2 losses. Oh, Clemson, they had 1 loss. They went 14-1. Then Michigan State, 12-2. Now, last year was conference title games. If the Notre Dame Fighting Irish only had 1 loss last year, do you think that the committee would have put them in ahead of Michigan State because they had 2 losses? Or even a Oklahoma who had 2 losses as well?
You're going to have to repeat that question to me.
So, okay, we're taking Notre Dame last year. We're basically saying they're not 10-3, they're 12-1. We had Alabama 1 loss, Clemson 1 loss, Oklahoma and Michigan State 2 losses. If Notre Dame had 1 loss last year, would they have been in the playoff over either Oklahoma or Michigan State?
Yes.
Which one?
Oklahoma.
Ooh, I would have went with the other one. Why Oklahoma? Tell me why.
I go Oklahoma because I think that people would rather see the Big Ten team. And I think
also you're going who's going to get me the most money, the more ratings.
I go with what everyone else goes with. I go with what people are thinking. I go with the fact that I think last year, at least coming in, before Oklahoma actually did okay, and until the end. But I think that people saw the Big 12 as they've got a lot of offense, but those are the only guys that ever take the field because the defense is not there. On the other side, though, I think that they would look at a Michigan State and say, hey, there's definitely offense there, but we've seen good defense. We're going to take the well-rounded team. I think Notre Dame would have beat out Oklahoma if that's the case.
Either way, you can't complain because you put them in for Oklahoma, you get a rematch of Clemson-Notre Dame, the game that Clemson lost. Then, if you put them in the other one, you get Notre Dame-Alabama, rematch of the national championship when they went there with Manti Te'o. So great matchups either way. I would have put them in over Michigan State. And the main reason is, who did Michigan State beat to win the Big Ten? Iowa. What have you said about Iowa that you agree with Colin Cowherd about? Iowa last year, what did they have?
They had their fake ID.
They had their fake ID.
If
you beat a team with a fake ID, I'll put a one-loss Notre Dame in over you. That's the way I would see it. That's why I would take Michigan State. But
I've got a really interesting quote here from Brian Kelly, and it makes me smile. he says, quote, I think my 12 stand up against another team's 11 at any time. And I'm saying 11 because one of those games is really an effective bye week because it's an FCS team. Then if they play a championship game, it's my 12 against their 12. And then that's where the committee will have to make a decision. My 12 against their 12. There are SEC schools that are effectively playing bye games in Week 11. If there are any complaints I have with the committee, I don't know how you reward anybody and keep them out there in the rankings when they effectively take a week off by playing an FCS opponent. End quote. I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, more schools are trying to get away from that. I know I want to say it's the Big Ten either this year or next year. They've basically said, you guys can't play FCS schools anymore, which you can say hurts the lower schools like Illinois and Rutgers and that, because anything to get a win to kind of boost your momentum. But you know what? You're in the Power Five. You shouldn't have to feed off of the FCS schools. And I know I'm probably gonna get a comment, but Ricky, Illinois might not even be able to beat any of those FCS schools.
And you cannot knock them for their comment because they might be half true.
No, they are half true. But things will change with Lovie Smith as our head coach. But no, with Notre Dame, they have to join a conference. And I know we've touched on this before, but it depends on now which conference do they join. To me, it's easy. It's the Big Ten. The Big Ten.
My thing, really quickly, I just want to hit on this point really quick that you had brought up, and that what Brian Kelly was talking about in the quote that I read. I don't really think there's a need to be playing FCS teams. Last year when we were going through some of our previews and stuff like that.
I could see if you were like Rutgers and you're a bottom feeder in the Big Ten and just want at least one win. Maybe like a bottom feeder that like you're bad. Then I can be like, okay, one.
How many times do we talk about bottom feeders?
No, I'm just
You're right.
saying, like,
You're right. We don't. So
I'm just saying, those teams I can maybe see like, okay, you can get one.
But do you really think I'm talking about them? I'm
No,
talking about
you're
Alabama.
talking about Alabama,
I'm talking
Ohio
about
State.
Ole Miss. I'm talking about Ohio State. These teams that will go out there on week 2 and play UC anywhere gives a fuck. I just like I don't understand why a good team like that needs to just throw in another win there, because it's not even going to be a quality win. You're going to beat them 66-4. 2 safeties for the other team.
2 safeties for the other team, but no, I I feel like Notre Dame needs to join a conference. And to me, like I said, it's the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten easily because then they can play Michigan, they can play Indiana, they can play Purdue, they can play Ohio State. I'm sorry, ACC, you're nice and cute over there, but Notre Dame belongs in the Midwest with the Big Ten.
See, I would tend to say ACC. I would say the ACC
because they could get a better competition to get into the playoff. You don't think they can contend with Ohio State? Is that it? Because we all know the rivalry brings them up to where they're even with Michigan, but it's really Ohio State, you don't think? Or is it Rutgers? They can't beat Rutgers. That's it.
No, I've always felt like Notre Dame is more towards the ACC than they are to.
See, I've always seen them
the
as,
Big Ten.
It's in my heart. I've just always seen them as a Big Ten school. They'd be perfect for the Big Ten.
And I haven't. I feel like they fit in with the Pittsburghs, the Clemsons, those types of teams in the ACC. I don't know. I can't really explain it. Mm-hmm. When I'm growing up, that's where I'm seeing them. I feel like they're an ACC team, not a Big Ten. Not a Big Ten.
Well, I just see like the rivalries with Michigan's the big one, but even like the rivalry with Purdue, and then you put them in the same conference with Indiana, you can kind of start a.
No one has a rivalry with Purdue. Purdue did that to themselves by being shitty.
But, I mean, you can have the Indiana kind of feuds going on, and then you can have them play Ohio State every year, and it would just be one of the best divisions in college football if you did that. And it would bring the conference so much money if they did that. And, I mean, if Penn State could ever get their heads out of their asses with James Franklin, then they could be even into the discussion to be a team to kind of bring in some money playing some Notre Dame. But, I mean, yeah, to me it's the Big Ten, just mainly because I would love to see the Michigan-Notre Dame game be a conference game each year. Each year. And make it matter. Make it really matter.
I think that you could be in different conferences and still be able to have that game.
Well, before we wrap it up, is there anything we missed with Notre Dame? Anything we missed that you feel like we need to say?
No, I don't. I do not think that we missed anything there with Notre Dame. But I do want to say that the top in this thing that I'm reading, the top celebrity that you don't want to work with is Jennifer Aniston, and I feel like a lot of people will find that to be, quite the shame because she's like 50 and people still want to have sex with her, and she was a Friends star, and people for some ungodly reason love that shit ass show. So I just thought I would let everyone know that so they can, really feel like they can go to bed tonight happy.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and that's going to do it for...
Anytime, that's what I'm here to do, help really liven up the end of the podcast.
That's why you're here, right? That's why you're here. But that's going to do it for the Primetime Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. Brandon is at young_swan19. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod. Make sure to also check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. For those of you who want to give a little bit extra support, you like what you're doing, you like what we're doing and what you're doing, but you like what we're doing for you, and you want to make sure we can do even more. For those of you who can help us out a little bit, you'll get an exclusive podcast. Only got to give us $1 and you get an exclusive podcast each and every month. So go check out our Patreon page. Go hit that likes, that subscribe button, that heart, that repost on SoundCloud. Share this to all of your friends. But most of all, thank you guys for listening. Me and Brandon will be back next week to talk to you guys some more about college sports. But as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.